I moved to the United States when I was, I believe, 13 years old from Nepal. As we left the airport in our tiny sedan, passing through strip malls, fast food chains, and a building with a mural of a topless woman, on an average gray Seattle weather, the word I would use to describe my feelings would be whoa. And oops, I got a doctor's appointment. I know I gotta do this video, but my pinky toenail is rotting, so I really gotta take this appointment! Bitch, I was disappointed. I thought I would be living in the 40th floor high rise building looking over the horizon like a supervillain. But we drove to a one bedroom apartment in a boring ass neighborhood where the most exciting thing was QFC and fucking Safeway, which I never do. Well, lots has changed since then. I have an American passport now, so I am an American bye bye. And I've spent more time here than in my home country Nepal, and I have gotten to experience America in all its glory, and there are holes in the glory, baby. And who doesn't love glory holes? The Amish, obviously. My first taste of American culture was through school. Now, there are many differences between American and Nepalese schools, but I want to focus on clothings and what it represents. In Nepal, when I went to school, I wore a uniform every single day. My uniform was a tan shirt with dark accents around the sleeve areas and the button areas. I wore dark blue pants, leather shoes, a tie, and either a dark blue coat or a sweater in the winter. And if I didn't wear any pieces of these clothings, if my shirt wasn't perfectly ironed, my shoe wasn't polished, I would be punished. Corporal punishment was very much a thing during my time, and I got hit like a pinata. I heard they don't do that anymore, those lucky bastards, but my booty cheeks were constantly red. So in many ways, I was really excited to move to American school because I was tired of the fucking torture. Although, as an adult, harder. Now, the torture I received in America was psychological. That proved to be even more detrimental to me, but that's another story. But at least in America, I got to wear whatever the fuck I wanted to. However, what I really wanted to wear was whatever it took to get me to fit in. In American schools, clothes highlighted the different social groups and the hierarchy that exists in those social groups. In Nepalese schools, because we were the same groups, the differences between each other really wasn't as noticeable. Now, I'm not saying that there was no differences and no hierarchy and everyone was equal, peace-loving, we're gonna reach nirvana, Buddha, yay! No, not at all. Because even as kids, we can notice the subtlest of differences. For instance, I remember wanting the pointy leather shoes as opposed to the rounded ones because some of the cool kids were wearing them. But overall, the differences really wasn't as apparent as it was in the States. In the States, the clothes made it instantly apparent who the cool kids were, who the nerds were, the goths, burnouts, jocks, the breakfast club and the mean girls of it all. Clothes were the one way for you to mold yourself into the subgroup you wanted to be part of. This sort of hierarchy in school makes you conscious of who you are, who you need to be, and who you want to associate with. All of that mattered because they determined how you were perceived and in turn how you were treated. And I was perceived as that bitch. Like, ooh, that bitch got no friends. I had no friends until like junior year. I couldn't fit in to save my life. And then I suddenly had a bunch of friends because girls like me. So if you want to be popular, date girls. Even if you like boys, work for me. But I kind of want to mention how ironic it is that even when I had the choice to express myself any way I wanted to, all I really wanted to do was conform and fit in because what had worked for me in Nepal, which was just being myself, was no longer enough. I think Americans' obsession with individualism is unique even among the Western world. I don't think there are as many countries that pride themselves on individualism like Americans do. And I think it's nice. Putting yourself and your needs first, with the one exception being your child, I think is a beautiful thing and healthy. It really gives you a sense of control towards your life. There is a common criticism I've heard on Americans regarding their individualistic nature, which insinuates that Americans only care about themselves and no one else. But in my experience, I disagree. I've seen many acts of kindness and friendliness towards others in America. And even if it's only at a shallow level, it's genuine and it's nice to have. It's nice to be complimented on my cute shirt that I just bought. It's nice when strangers smile at you and say hi. Americans get in queue, and if someone accidentally cuts you off, they will likely apologize and correct themselves. Americans might yield to incoming traffic and let them go. Americans would likely let a pedestrian cross. You'd think these things are common courtesy, but they don't happen everywhere. For instance, it doesn't happen too commonly in Nepal. Try crossing the road in Nepal. It's life or death. I find that Nepalese people, on the other hand, put a bigger emphasis on family, friends, and community. But outside of that, people are kind of out for themselves, with some disregards to their surroundings. So in Nepal, friends and families will be there for you and help you in ways that I think is less likely in America. Even if you know someone on a superficial level, like you're just a friend of a friend, or you've talked to them for like 15 minutes, Nepalese people will share a lot of closeness and warmth and openness towards you. It doesn't take a lot for them to invite you to their home. I find that that kind of warmth is not too common in America, or at least where I live, which is Seattle. But on the other hand, in Nepal, no one's waiting on a queue. People will keep their own house pristine and clean, but then throw trash on public space, which I find it to be absolutely frustrating. The workers are working on a glacial pace, even if it's busy as hell, because no one gives a fuck. In America, people are very much aware of their surroundings. Being a good Samaritan is very important, but on the flip side, this hyper awareness creates a fear of judgment. And that's because people are judging. I'm judging. Yeah, you nasty little. It's incredibly difficult to get to know people on more than a shallow level because people have a wall to protect themselves from judgment. Here, I'm hyper aware and worried about annoying people around me. I don't want to start a conversation with a stranger because I feel like I'm bothering them. And I likely am, because they're not used to being open with strangers outside of small talks and pleasantries. I mean, even with friends, I have a hard time asking for help because I just don't want to put someone in a difficult position. All of this is to say that there is a paradoxical nature to American individualism. The country prides itself on individuality, yet the people put up a face at all times. Like in school, you'd think given the choice of freedom to wear the clothes you want to would allow students to be who they are and express themselves authentically. But nope. More often than not, kids betray their individuality to fit into social subgroups with such defined parameters of identity. I've traveled to quite a few countries, and I don't think I've seen a culture where people have such loyalty to brands, political parties, occupations, social beliefs, etc. I mean, Stanley Cup? It's a fucking cup. So it's kind of ironic to have a culture be so focused on individualism, yet be so defined by packaged belief systems, values, interests, etc. It's strange because Americans are always caring about how the collective is perceiving them, so a lot of things we do, positive or negative, is in response to that. Yet, because there is no feeling of community within the collective, we're all desperately searching for one. So, consciously or unconsciously, we mold ourselves, shape our beliefs, wear the clothes so we can be part of a group that we think we're like. So, I'm kind of confused though. What part of that screams individualism? Is individualism the process of constantly trying to define oneself until we find an identity, or is it the lack of self definition that reveals one's authentic self, unique even when blended in with the crowd? When I meet a Nepali person in a foreign place, there is a sense of connection and closeness I feel instantly because there is such a high point of relatability just on the virtue of being Nepalese. I just don't feel that meeting Americans, even though today I feel like I'm more American than Nepali. I've spent more time here than in Nepal. I grew up here. I formed most of my beliefs through American culture. Yet, I feel less of a connection to other Americans than I do to Nepalese people. And I think a lot of people are like that. I feel like Nepal's identity is more well defined, and the identity of people from Nepal is very much tied to the country. In America, we're all confused, always trying to find ourselves. But maybe that's by design. The eternal longing to feel like we belong. How poetic. Could be on a billboard, and that's probably where we will find it. The American identity is probably on a digital billboard that changes every day. Likely decided by people sitting on a boardroom wearing the exact same suit. Although now they do work from home probably, so that's nice. This entire video for me was a way to kind of discuss the longing I feel of a community in this country. It's like we all have to search for a community. But there are many places in the world where just being part of the country feels somewhat like a community, and I feel like that is missing in America. I just wish there was a stronger bond between Americans just on the virtue of being American. Or better yet, I wish there was a stronger bond just on the virtue of being human.